All right, y'all. We are going to have a discussion about the book of Exodus. All right. Let's see here. All right. All right. We're going to go through the book of Exodus plus have a panel discussion. So anybody that wants to come on the panel, please feel free to do it. I happen to love this book in the Bible. It's one that I even loved in childhood. So for me to talk about the book of Exodus is a treat to me. You know, it is beyond an honor to be able to discuss this. That's how much I really love this book. And it's got so many reasons why we should love the book, because number one, the Most High was with the people, and the Most High saved his people. And it's showing us for, things to come, because he's going to be coming back to save us once again. Those of you that are just entering the room, Shabbat Shalom. And Sabbath actually came out of the book of Exodus, where Moses was given things from the Most High. And this is where they gathered their manna together on the 6th day. And that way, on the 7th day, they would rest. That was a day of rest. I mean, my goodness, who's going to complain about a day of rest? No one. So anybody that's interested in joining the panel, please come and join. All right. So I'm going to get started. Now, you will hear things like the wilderness. Actually, the entire globe is the wilderness. Everything on, we are in the wilderness because everywhere we go on the planet, our enemy is there. So we are in the wilderness. This book came out during a time when Egypt was running the world. And when they ruled the world, they had pharaohs. All of the pharaohs did not like us. Some of them did. Some of them were not okay. Now, Egypt was one of those places that many of our people would go into. You will even hear about our people in Genesis going into Egypt. And Egypt also had a large population of Israelites. Now, I'll hear people say, just like when I put out my video on the kingdom of Cush, I had some people, well, the hell with the Hamites, screw them. But, you know, a lot of our history is with the Hamites. You know, we were around Gentiles all the time as a people. So just because you may feel that way, it doesn't dismiss the fact that we have a very deep history with the Hamites. So now let's get into this. Now, Israelites either lived in Egypt or went in and out of Egypt because Egypt at that time had a lot of food. So, and there were droughts. The areas in that region were prone to droughts. And whenever there was a drought and a shortage of food, our people would go into Egypt to purchase food and get things for their families, sometimes buy livestock. And so, you know, and those type of things. Now, Pharaoh actually came into power. And when he came into power, one of the first things he noticed that the enslaved Israelites were having more babies than the Egyptians. Now, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. What are the one things that our enemy in this land always talk about? Y'all having all them babies and you can't take care of your babies. And you remember, you know how they always say that to us? That's how you know we are out birthing them, even in this land. See, you can pick up on that stuff. Why would they care about how many babies we're having if we're only 13% of the population? Does that make any sense? Why would you worry about how many babies 13% of the population is having? It would only bother them if we are having more babies than them. And see, like I said, when it comes down to our enemy, it is not about what they say. Watch their actions. Watch their actions. What are their actions? Putting abortion clinics in the Black neighborhood. Again, if we were this tiny 13% population, why would you try to sabotage us with abortion clinics? And we're this little tiny 13%. I wouldn't think you would have to worry about 13%. But they always will slip up. Now, on one hand, you're saying we're 13% of the population, right? And then on the other hand, you're complaining about all the babies we're having. Does that make any sense? I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has picked up on that. So those are indicators that tell you we have been outperforming them birth-wise for a very long time. And you wouldn't have somebody like Margaret Sanger coming along over concerned about what these Black people are doing. Remember, she said we were like weeds. So if we're like weeds, okay, and we're multiplying like weeds, then how can we still be 13% of the population? So it just requires a little more thinking, because you know what? These folks really can't outthink us, especially the ones that know who we are. They cannot outthink outthink us. They really can't. When it comes down to us giving birth compared to them, they always contradict themselves all the time. The only reason why they have us at 13% is because they are the keeper of the numbers. And they sure won't let us see the real numbers. But ladies and gentlemen, they know what the real numbers are. That's why they're constantly coming at us. That's why, I was telling you about my uncle when he was telling me, he's in his 70s, telling me that they were telling him we were 13% of the population when he was in elementary school. So we know that couldn't possibly be the real number. And their actions, they act as if we are outperforming them in births. Or otherwise, why would you complain? So Pharaoh at that time was complaining about how many babies the Israelites were having in Egypt, and the Egyptians weren't having nearly as many babies, right? So the first thing he told them, when the Israelite women are on the birthing stool, I want you to kill all of the male babies. So he's telling the midwives, as soon as these babies come out, I want you to see whether it's a male or female. If it's a male, you slaughter that baby right there. If it's a female, let the baby live. See, because the Egyptian men didn't mind being with Israelite women and marrying Israelite women. They didn't care about that, but they wanted that black man out the way. Now, think about what's going on now. What do they want? Whenever they go on the attack, they attack the women and the children. They want that black man out the way because they know if they come on attack after that black man gonna fight and beat the hell out of them. And they know it. Deep down inside, they know our men, when you push a black man up in a corner, he's gonna come out swinging like a warrior. They know this. They know. In all of our population, this is why they try to always go after the black man, lynch the black man, shoot the black man, do this to the black man, because they fear him. They know the power and strength of our men. And so did the Egyptians. The Egyptians knew it at that time too. So what do? You take the strongest in the tribe and you kill them. That's our men. All right. So the midwives did not do this. They didn't do it because they feared Yah more than they feared Pharaoh. So they wouldn't do it. They didn't follow these instructions. So those women were rewarded. The Israelites ended up building them brand new houses for not killing the Israelite the male babies, and letting them live. Now, Moses' mother did not want him to get killed. So what she did, she put him in a basket. And I know some of you might have watched the movie Moses with Charleston Heston. It had a lot of truth in it, but the part where he puts his hand in the bosom and took it out and it changed, they skipped over that part because they knew that wouldn't be believable. But she pushes him across the Nile in this basket. Pharaoh's daughter found Moses when he was a baby. She took him out of the Nile and she looked at him. Thank you, Zion's daughter. Listen, so she took him out of the Nile and she realized that was an Israelite child she was looking at. So a lot of people believe that was the queen Hepsetsu, because during that time, she was a teenager. During the time of Moses, she was already a teenager, and she was Pharaoh's daughter. So she found him, and she looked at the baby, realized this is an Israelite baby. So she told one of her servants, who was an Israelite woman, she said, go find an Israelite that can nurse this baby. What she didn't realize was she went and got Moses' biological mom. And so what Pharaoh's daughter did was paid Moses' mother to nurse him. And she didn't even realize it about, but sometimes the Most High has a sense of humor. So she was literally paying the biological mother to nurse her own baby. So she took him in, and Pharaoh ended up accepting Moses. And Hepsetsu ended up raising him as her own. All right. So Moses grew up Egyptian. He grew up Egyptian. And his spirit knew something wasn't right. When he reached a certain age, he started feeling for the Israelites, and he was not happy with the way the Israelites were being treated. And that was the Most High putting that spirit on him so he could start learning who he really was. It's just like when we have our spiritual awakening. That is exactly what we're going to do that. We're going to do a lot of this today. We're going to get into the plagues and everything, Egypt, Wesley. And he knew something was wrong, because every time the Egyptians would attack or treat the Israelites wrong, it would upset him. So he knew something wasn't right. But although he was raised as Egyptian, something spiritually was going on with him where he was not going along with this mistreatment of the Israelite people, right? Okay. So Moses grew up as an Egyptian prince, but then he kills an Egyptian overseer that was beating an Israelite man. That's what he was doing. So Moses took this Egyptian overseer and buried him in the sand. But he knew it was only a matter of time before somebody would realize that he murdered someone. So Moses knew he had to get out of Egypt. He knew he had to do this. Now, Moses head out of town, and he finds himself in the wilderness. And in the wilderness, he actually comes across the Most High. So when he left Egypt and he encounters the Most High, remember, that's when he saw the burning bush. He sees this burning bush. Now, this bush is on fire. Now, what's unique about this bush is it's not burning. It's on fire, but the bush is still alive. It's not burning like it should. Like the leaves should be burning, the bark on it should be burning. It wasn't burning. That was the fascinating part about this fire. So the Most High appears before him, and he gives him a message. So he tells him he must go back into Egypt. Go back to Egypt, because you need to free your people. Get your brother Aaron, and you're going to go to the Pharaoh, and you're going to ask him to let your people go. So that's when Moses returned back to Egypt. and he goes to his brother Aaron. Now, this is the beautiful part I like. Many people don't know that Moses was not a well-spoken man. He did not exactly speak well. And in today's term, you might think that he even might be kind of slow. So he was like, look, I don't speak well. How am I going to go before the people or go before Pharaoh and say anything? I'm not a well-spoken person. And the Most High said, I'll be with you. I will be with you when you talk to the people. I will be with you when you speak to Pharaoh. I created your mouth. I'll be with you, and I'll guide you in what you need to say. You just go back, and don't you have a brother Aaron? And he said, yes. He said, well, Aaron is well-spoken, so don't worry about it. You just go back because you need to free your people. So he goes back, and Aaron and Moses go before Pharaoh. Now, remember, Pharaoh challenges them. Remember, they throw a staff on the floor, and the staff becomes a serpent. And then Moses throw his staff on the floor, and his staff turns into a serpent, but it eats Pharaoh's snake. So there are many miracles that we see happen in this story. So then Moses asked Pharaoh to free the Israelites. And of course, Pharaoh refuses to do this. So the Most High said, don't worry about it. So now what I will do is start putting plagues on these people. This is what I'm going to do to them. So now what happens? It started raining 10 plagues down on Egypt. 10 plagues, y'all. That's what happens. So yes, Pharaoh did harden his heart. He did. But Moses didn't have to worry about nothing because the Most High was on his side. So the Most High already decided we're going to rain these plagues down. So now what were the plagues? 1, the blood water. So the water turned blood red. Now, do we or do we not see blood water today? Yes, we do. Okay. I did a story on water turning blood red in Russia, and it happened also a few times in China and in other locations around the country. So we know these plagues are even showing up today. All right, so then another plague, if you remember, were the lice. Remember, they were plagued with lice. They were plagued with flies. It was so many flies, it was just unbearable. They couldn't even get up and live life normally because it was just overwhelmed with lice and flies. He also brought disease to the livestock in Egypt. He also gave them boils on the skin. Now, don't we still see boils on the skin? How about those second-degree sunburns that we see on the enemy? Second-degree sunburns, don't we still see those boils? Yes. So we still see the plagues. Remember, all of a sudden, we would see the enemy saw sky fire. All this stuff happened. The locusts came, and the locusts ate up all the crops and everything. So all of these things happened. It was really a lot of darkness going on for the Egyptians back then. Yep, the frogs. Yep, you're right. The frogs, they had all kinds of plagues happening back to back plagues. As soon as they got over one plague, another plague came. And then the ultimate plague came. The Most High killed off the firstborn of every single Egyptian. And then what our people had to do was mark their doorpost with lamb's blood. Now, why did they have to do that? Because during the time when he was wiping out the firstborn of every Egyptian, the marked doors with lamb blood indicated that that's an Israelite in that home. So we're going to pass over those homes and go just to the homes of the Egyptians. Yep, it was the firstborn of the animals too. Firstborn. So anything that was firstborn, human and animal, were put to death. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where Passover came from. Everybody that just came in the room, Shabbat Shalom to you. Yes. Yeah, the water was blood red in Russia. Yes, you can actually look that up. That was Passover. So the Egyptians had enough. Thank you so much, Ahaya's daughter. So the Egyptians actually had enough. And they wanted this whole thing to go away. But Pharaoh's heart was still hardened, y'all. That wasn't enough for him. He was still determined not to let the Egyptians go. Now, do you see how they depend heavily on our slavery here in America? Well, guess what? They depended heavily on the slavery of the Israelites in Egypt in the same manner. He didn't want to give that up. He knew the value of those Israelites that he had. He didn't want to give them up. That's right. That was the death angel. Absolutely. And that death angel is here. We see the destruction going on with our enemies. That death angel is here. Okay. The Egyptians had enough. Pharaoh was still hardened. So now, before we even get to them going into the desert, we're going to just kind of go through each chapter. So that's just a brief summary. We got through the midwives. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't leave anything out. That part of it was chapter 1. Chapter 2 was the early years of Moses. All right, so that's good. The burning bush is in chapter 3. So I'm just going through just so we don't forget anything here. All right. So at this point, Moses is given miracles to perform. All right. So we know about the staff. Now, in chapter 4 is when he puts his hand in his bosom. Okay. And when he takes his hand out, it becomes leprous. All right. So the Most High is giving these miracles to Moses so he can see what he can do. And then he had Moses. This is where Moses and the water, where he would be able to put his staff in the water of the Nile and it turns blood red. All right. That's also in chapter 4. Now, Pharaoh, you would think he would say, okay, I had enough. Nope. His heart was still hardened, y'all. Still hardened. And again, you can see similarities. When Marcus Garvey was trying to get people that wanted to leave America out, What happened? What happened? Do everybody remember what happened when Marcus Garvey tried to get our people out of America? What happened? Mhm. All right. Did America let us go? Did America let us go with Marcus Garvey? Right. You know, no matter how much our enemies protest our existence, they still won't let us go. Okay. And Pharaoh detested the Israelites. He, again, just like we're looked at as less than, he looked at us, the Pharaoh looked at us as we were less than. We were less than the Egyptians. The Egyptians were greater people than the Israelites. So no matter how much he put up an argument about how much he hated us, he still was trying to hang on to us, wasn't he? I mean, and don't we see this happening even to this day? We see our enemies doing everything they can to hang on to us. That's right. They shipped him back to Jamaica, but they ultimately killed Marcus Garvey. Okay. Now, Moses took a wife during that same period of time. He took a wife, and his father-in-law was Jethro. And this is where um, you will notice that Moses started interactions with Jethro. So he takes his wife and son on a donkey trip because that's what everybody used back then. So the Most High tells him, you know, look, Moses, you need to use these miracles that I gave you. I gave you miracles. Pharaoh's heart is hardened, but I need you to perform these miracles. So chapter 4 is when it goes into the firstborn of animal and humans being killed off. So that's chapter 4. All right. In chapter 5, now Moses is showing off his miracles that he can do, his gifts. So finally, Pharaoh says, you know, I don't even know who this God is that you keep talking about, Moses. Who the hell is this God that you keep mentioning? So, you know, he tries to tell him, but you know, Pharaoh thought he was God. He thought he was the God, you know, so he couldn't imagine something being greater than him at all. So when you look at this particular book, Moses is now going to the Israelites and he's telling them, you know, we got to go. We got to get out of here. So there's all kinds of political things, just like here in the US, there was a lot of politicking going on in Egypt as well. Just like here in the US, you see all of these politics going on. And mainly the only politics they practice in Washington is the kind of politics that is detrimental to our community. They never do anything good or righteous for the Black community at all. Or they're putting, like I said, criminal laws in place that they know are going to hurt us more than anyone else. And they all just sit there and go along with it. It doesn't even matter if they're other Black people like us. It doesn't matter. Okay, so at this point, by the time we get to chapter 5, this is when um, we get our freedom. We get our freedom from slavery from Pharaoh. So he was like, yeah, get your people and get the hell out of my country. Get out of here. So that's what they do. They make what we call the Exodus. But see, you know what? You know what's fascinating about this? When our people left, do you know a bunch of Egyptians also left with our people? It wasn't all Israelites that left. When we left that nation of Egypt, there were a bunch of Egyptians that got the hell out of Egypt with us. Now, many of them were our servants out in the wilderness during that time. You know, when I first heard this story when I was a child, I thought only the Israelites left. But no, it was also Egyptians that left with us. Remember, our enemies always cleaved on to the Israelites. And when we go through our second Exodus out of here, out of Babylon, we're going to have our enemies going into the kingdom with us. But they won't have any power there. They won't have any power at all. Yeah, there were mixed Israelite Egyptian children. Yep, it sure was, because some of our men and women were married to Egyptians. You know, yeah, I don't know. We were all black, you know, in Egypt. So the only thing is, you know, the Egyptians are of a whole different tribe from us. So yes, you had some Hamite, Shemite children. But all of those children were accepted by the Most High. Okay. Yep. So this is when they head out into the wilderness. Now, unfortunately, our people went out to the wilderness complaining and bitching and moaning every step of the way. And Moses kept going to the Most High to say, you know, they're complaining, they're bickering, you know, I don't know what to do. They're fighting. They're doing what we know our people are good at doing, fighting, right? Well, those same things happen. And it got to be even sad. The bickering got so bad, they actually made Moses cry. He actually wept because they were just complaining so much. It was just overwhelming to him. But before we go any further, I'm going to play part of the Exodus, and then we can discuss it a little more. So I'm going to go ahead, and when I share this on the screen, you're going to be able to see text. So you'll be able to read along with it. All right. All right. Let me see if I can everybody see it on the screen? If not, all right, hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. Give me 1 second. See if I can share my screen here. All right. Okay. All right. You make it full screen. All right, now we should be able to get started.
Exodus 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, When ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied, and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. Exodus 2. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bare a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child. And behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the women took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared, and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage. And they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. Exodus 3.
Moses kept the flock of Jethro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush, and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain.
And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Go, and gather the elders of Israel together, and say unto them, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt, unto the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt. And ye shall say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews hath met with us. And now let us go, we beseech thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. And I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go, no, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand, and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass, that when ye go, ye shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver, and jewels of gold, and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons, and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. Exodus 4. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. That they may believe that the Lord God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these 2 signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which thou takest out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart. And thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth. And I will be with thy mouth, and wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass. And he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. And the Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. And it came to pass by the way in the inn, that the Lord met him, and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, and cut off the foreskin of her son, and cast it at his feet, and said, Surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. Then she said, A bloody husband thou art, because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went, and met him in the mount of God, and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spake all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited, and the king of Egypt said unto them, Wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, let the people from their works? Get you unto your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and ye make them rest from their burdens. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and the tale of the bricks which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let their more work be laid upon the men, that they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spake to the people, saying, Thus saith Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt, to gather stubble instead of straw. And the taskmasters hasted them, saying, Fulfill your works, your daily tasks, as when there was straw. And the officers of the children of Israel, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and demanded, Wherefore in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And Moses returned unto the Lord, and said, Lord, wherefore hast thou so evil entreated this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he hath done evil to this people. Neither hast thou delivered thy people at all. Exodus 6. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And God spake unto Moses, and said unto him, I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, by the name of God Almighty. But by my name Jehovah was I not known to them. And I have also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage. And I, Aaron, and gave them a charge